So I've been homebrewing right here in my kitchen for just over a year, and 16 recipes, over 80 gallons, and 600 beers later, I've never been this close to pouring one down the drain. Let me show you what I mean. What's up everybody, Just Brewing here, and today we're going to do things a little bit differently. Opposed to our typical extract brewing, I was able to get a new kettle and a mash tun. And for any home brewers out there, you know what that means. That means all grain brewing. Today we're going to take the easy route and go with what we call a brew in a bag. It's essentially a nylon bag that I'm going to use to put all these grains into. We're going to do what's called mashing and sparging. In front of me, I have 14 pounds of 2-row malt, very popular. For the recipe that we're going with, this is what we call a SMaSH IPA, single malt and single hop. We're gonna take all this malt here, get it into our bag, stir it up, make sure there's no clumps, no dough balls is what we call it. After that, we're going to pretty much go about it like it's a regular brew day. We're not gonna be using any liquid malt extract, no dry malt extract. Instead, all grain. Once we're done mashing our grains, we're gonna do what's called sparging. We're just gonna rinse the grains off with some hot water. That way we can trickle off a little bit more sugar. That sugar is what we're gonna use with the yeast to get alcohol. So we definitely wanna get as much as we can, but in about 20 or so minutes, once it's done mashing, we're gonna go ahead and start to sparge. Now that we're done sparging, I've got the grains in the bag on top of a colander inside of a bucket. That way, any wort, any water that's still amongst the grains, it's gonna drain out into the bucket. I'll pour the bucket into the kettle, and from there, we're gonna get it to a boil. We're gonna start what would be a normal brew day from here on out. We're gonna put in our first addition of hops, our second, our third. We're gonna follow the recipe like we always do, and from here on out, it should be a typical brew day. Should be. So this brew is gonna be a lot of firsts. Not only is this my first all grain batch of beer, but it's also gonna be the first batch of beer that I've used yeast nutrient and Whirlflock tablets. The tablets are gonna be for clarity on the end product, hopefully a clear beer. Something like this doesn't need to be hazy, it doesn't need to be opaque. You wanna be able to see through it because that's just one of the characteristics of an IPA. The yeast nutrient is gonna do just that. It's gonna give the yeast just a little bit more to eat and hopefully provide an even faster fermenting process. I'll be adding both of these in at about 10 to 15 minutes left on the boil. So hopefully once that's done and the final product is here, not only will it be a little faster, but it'll also be pretty clear. Let's hope it works. So this beer is taking me on a roller coaster. It was supposed to go from grain to glass in about a week with a dry hopping phase about 2 days in with 2 ounces of hops. And this is all normal. I've used this recipe before, but never brew in a bag. I've never gone all grain, and I haven't actually used a nylon bag the way I used it in this brew day. The yeast that I picked is called Quake yeast, and it's a Norwegian farmhouse yeast, and it's known for fermenting at crazy temperatures, over 90 degrees. And generally, ale yeast, like what we usually brew here, likes the temperatures between 68 to 75 degrees. Fermentation started about 30 minutes after brew day. I actually set it in the garage, sealed everything up, finished cleaning, and went to check on it, and it was already bubbling away. And that was crazy to see, watching it go from literally grains hours ago to the yeast already kicking away and eating the sugars, and it was awesome to see. Seeing active fermentation about 30 minutes after brew day really told me that this was going to be exactly what I wanted. I was going to be able to brew on Sunday and drink on Sunday. Well, that was not the case at all. So the recipe calls for dry hopping about 2 days after fermentation starts, and I went ahead and did that. I opened the fermenter, pitched the hops, closed it up, and everything seemed to be okay. It wasn't until towards the end of the week when I was expecting to be carbonating it that I could tell things didn't go right. Not only was it still fermenting, there were still bubbles in the airlock, it also was really, really grainy to the touch. It was barely drinkable. Anytime you took a sip, it was like you were chewing. It was genuinely like when they call beer liquid bread. It was not what I wanted. It was very close to going down the drain. I decided to filter it, not knowing what else to do. So I got it out of the keg into a bottling bucket and strained it along the way to help get all this hop debris and really just all this extra yeast that had built up. I cleaned all that out. Cold crashed it in the keezer, so I just let it sit in the keezer untouched for about a day or so while I was carbonating it more, and still the same result. It was hazy, and all you could smell was peach and hops, and it just did not taste good. I decided to let it sit in the keezer for just a few more days, and then I realized that it's going to need to be filtered again. So I got it out of the keg one more time, and at this point I've already risked it for oxidation a couple times. There was no going back, but I did not want to pour it down the drain. So I ended up putting it back in the bottling bucket, filtering it again, and straining it again, and eventually this was the result. What was supposed to be a peachy tropical IPA is now a peach blonde. And that's the beauty of home brewing. Though this did not go the way I wanted it to, it very easily could have gone much worse, but it's drinkable. I don't really know where I went wrong or what combination of things went wrong for it to turn out this way, but I'm glad that the beer is still drinkable. Of the things that I've learned, I now know to do a little bit more research on the yeast. On the package, it did mention to rehydrate the yeast, kind of like making a yeast starter, if any of you are familiar with that. But really, it's essentially getting a little bit of wort ready, pitching the yeast in it so that it can start to multiply and reproduce. That way, when you pour it into the beer, the yeast has already had a chance to work and will work a little bit faster. I didn't do that. I didn't think twice about it. I am so used to just sprinkling dry yeast on top. I didn't even read the instructions when I did that. So that could have easily been where I went wrong first. Another place when I was cleaning things and draining and trying to clean up all the hop debris and yeast that just kind of accumulated in the beer, I realized that one of the tools that I was using it was kind of like a metal strainer that you put onto spigots. I didn't think twice and I didn't end up cleaning it properly. On top of not cleaning enough, I also messed up somewhere along my mashing process. So at the beginning of brew day, when I'm getting the water hot so that I can get the grains in a bag and let it sit, I had to check the temperature on 3 different thermometers because they were all giving me different readings. One was saying it was 170 degrees and another was saying it was 130. The middle was saying it was about 150, so I really didn't know what to do there. I probably should have put a halt to brew day and tried to get a more accurate reading from a thermometer or even calibrate the ones that I had. But of the thermometers, they all gave me different readings, so I didn't really know what to do. I just kind of went with the one that was in the middle, and because that was about the temperature that I wanted it at, so I went ahead and started brew day. That could have been where I went wrong. I also could have, when I dry hopped, I should have put those hops in a bag. That way, when they did break apart, all that hop debris was at least going to be stuck in the bag. There's a lot that I could have done better, and I can't wait to try it again so that I can hopefully get the end product that I want. But for now, this peach blonde will have to do. Of all the beer that I've made over this year and some change now, I've never been so up and down with a beer. You can ask anyone that lives here. I was on the verge twice of pouring it down the drain. After I tried it the first time, and I'll put a picture of what it looks like here. When I tried it the first time, it did not taste good at all. I am one to drink what would probably be any beer under most circumstances, and it it was not good. So I kind of had to, I already spent the money on all the recipe. I'd already spent the time and everything trying to get it done. So there was I didn't want to just give up on it. So I cold crashed it, I filtered it, I let it sit, I cold crashed it, I filtered it, and what is now half the beer gone just from being so much of it being in hop debris and excess yeast that I'm now left with 2 gallons of peach blonde. Well, I hope you learned something. I for sure did. I will be doing another brew in the bag soon, probably in my new kettle, where I can manage volume more. There's a lot that I plan to do better. Hopefully, again, you learned something. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe. In the comments, let me know if you by chance saw what I did or where it went wrong or where you think I may have went wrong. I'm happy to take any type of criticism on something like this because I just want to learn and try to get, not let this happen again. Don't forget to visit justbrewing.com where I've actually published my brew schedule, so you'll see what beers I'm working on, the steps that I'm taking, and the day I'll be taking it on. So don't forget to go to justbrewing.com. At the top you'll see a link to my brew schedule. Don't forget to visit justbrewing.com/merch where all merch proceeds are going to be donated. Thanks for viewing Just Brewing. See you in the next one. Oh, I need to drink all this beer.